All right. So my name is Mrs. Davidson, and I get the privilege of talking to you about Helen Roseveare today to continue her story and pick up where Mrs. Hernandez left off yesterday. And if you guys remember, Helen was in the Congo, but what? She was going to take a break. She was going to go home to England and take a break from the mission field for a little while. So that is where we're starting her story today. Helen, and this is a picture of her. Here she is. She gets to go home to Cornwall and take a vacation, take a break. So she lived very close to the beach. And this is one of those beaches in Cornwall, England, that she might have been able to go visit. So she went home, and she probably walked up and down the shore and admired all the huge, craggy rocks along the sand, thanking God for his creation and this wonderful season of rest. All right. So, hi guys, come on in. We are just talking about Helen Roseveare again. She got to go home to England, and this is the beach where she lived nearby that she probably went and visited. So she was home, she was loving it. She got to travel all over and go to different churches and tell all the people there about the medical work that they were doing in the Congo. She got to tell them about everything she was learning and all the training they were able to do. She got to travel and visit different places along the islands. She even decided, well, I'm going to be here for a while. I'll probably get a job. So she went to London, which was about 3 hours away from Cornwall, where the beaches were, and she said, I'm going to start working in a hospital. So she got a job. She got a paycheck. She got into her routine. She got pretty comfortable, and it was neat because she was earning that money, and she was able to send money home to her family to help them. She sent some of the money to the Congo to continue the work there while she wasn't there, and she also got a chance, because of that money, to travel some more. She was having a pretty good time back in England. She got pretty comfortable. She was away from the Congo and kind of got used to the easier life here. And she realized, you know what? I'm lonely. I'm by myself. I'm living my life. What am I doing? You know, I would love to get married. I would love to find a husband and settle down, have someone to look after me, and maybe do missions work together. How cool would it be to find somebody to go back to Africa and, do this together? So she knew that she had God in her life and desired to serve him, but she really wanted a husband. And there was a friend of hers, this man, who loved God. He really did. But you know what? He really didn't want to go do missions or leave the country or do that kind of thing like Helen did. Helen was torn. What do I do? I really like this man, and I would love to be married, but I know that God wants me to serve him in the Congo. What do I do? For a little while, she thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep being friends with him, and I'm going to quit the mission and just see what happens. But she was trying to do things her own way, right? When she knew that God had a better way for her, she was striving against his plan for her. But eventually she realized something super important. She belonged to God. She knew this. And God was her king, and she knew that his way was the best and that he loved her so much, and he wanted what was the best for her. God could be trusted. And even if Helen had to say goodbye to her friend and say, you know what? It's okay that I don't get married right now. I am going to be obedient to the Lord and see what else he has for me. So she repented of her selfishness and asked God again to accomplish his purpose through her. She remembered how she had prayed to God and told him to go ahead and make me more like you, Jesus, no matter the cost. She still meant it. And she realized, and she said these words. She said, if I truly believe in him, believe in God, I'll trust him to desire for me that which is my highest good and to have planned for its fulfillment. She knew that she could trust God for a life for her that was better than anything she could think up. She knew what she had to do, right? After this, after her wonderful vacation and being at home, she said, I've got to go back. I need to go back. So that is what she did. And remember yesterday how Mrs. Hernandez had said how big of a journey it was to go from England all the way to Africa, how many weeks it took and hours and hours and hours of travel. Well, Helen did it all over again. When she finally arrived back in Nebabongo, she quickly got back to work. They were so excited to have her there. She was so ready to work again at the hospital and to train and teach. And the other doctors who were there, it was their turn to go back to their home and take a break. And Helen came back and they swapped places so everybody could take a rest, right? So Helen got back to work. Things were pretty normal enough. She kept busy tending to her patients, but there was a lot of uncertainty in the region, in the political unrest in that part of the world. While Dr. Helen came back, many other people living there were fleeing. They were leaving Africa. She came back, but lots of people were leaving. They were just a little bit nervous and scared of how the country was going. Things were changing a lot. The colony was being granted independence, but the people given these new leadership roles and power didn't quite know how to be responsible or act with justice. But they did get granted independence. And on June 30th, 1960, it was Independence Day for the people of the Congo. And they renamed that Zaire for a little bit. This, you guys, in 1960, that wasn't that long ago. That's only 63 years ago. And for the first time, they gained this new independence. They didn't really know what to do with it, but they were excited anyway. So we've been celebrating independence here for almost 250 years. And we have a holiday that we do have every summer. And next week is this holiday. Do you guys know what holiday I'm talking about? Independence Day? 4th of July. That is right. And we get to celebrate and be excited and so grateful to God for delivering us and for giving us life and hope and peace, right? We celebrate with fireworks and good food and games and hanging out with our friends and family. Well, the people in the Congo got to celebrate too. Some of the things that they did, they got to play a soccer game in the village there. They were so excited. They got to play games, and all the chiefs in the villages dressed up and got to wear fancy outfits and cool hats, right? And bright patterns, kind of like this. This is what they would wear in the villages, and they were so excited, and they were celebrating. Huge bouquets of flowers, and they would share eggs with each other and just have a great time. And they were so excited about this new season of life that they invited the missionaries. Oh, come and celebrate with us. You're welcome here with us. It was a nice, nice time. But not everybody in the world and in this region of Africa were celebrating in a joyful and kind way. Within the next few years, super quickly, the regional capital of the Congo, it was captured by Simba or lion rebels, okay? They were soldiers, they were rebels, and they called themselves the Lions. And they were fierce, and they were powerful, and they bossed people around, and they wanted the power, and they made up their own rules. So, there were truckloads of soldiers who drove through the villages, and they were making threats and causing trouble and just being very, very mean. Some of these rebel soldiers, though, you guys, do you realize this? They were very young. They were even just a little bit older than you. Children were being forced to be in this rebel army. They were taken from their homes and forced to fight. They were given weapons like guns and knives and spears, and they said, you got to do what we say, and you got to be in this army. And they did what they were told. They didn't know what else to do, right? And they didn't have the hope of Jesus to free them and to realize how to treat other people. So here they were, these lion cubs, right? You think of the lion cubs, and they were being told by the lion rebels that you have to be in our army and fight. So this was happening all over the country. Lots of people were being killed, right? Roads were blocked, and anybody that wanted to get through, they were stopped and questioned. Where are you going? What are you doing? Tell us everything about yourselves. Cars were being stolen. People were being robbed. Local chiefs, right? The men who were in the villages, excited and ready to lead their people, they were getting beat up and hurt. And some of these child soldiers were part of that. So, sadly, it became common for Dr. Helen and her team there at the hospital, the compound there, when they would hear a vehicle rumbling by in the distance, they got a little nervous. They got a little scared because it could mean two things. One, they were going to come into their village there and steal all their stuff. They would take whatever they wanted and just steal their stuff and then leave, right? Take all their belongings. And they just couldn't do anything about it. There was no one to stop them. So that was one possibility. Something else that might be scary too for Helen, sometimes the trucks would rumble in with these rebel soldiers, and they would have one of their rebel soldiers who was hurt, and they would say, do surgery or fix him, get him better. We need medicine. So Helen, right, from a couple days before how she was still scared of the sight of blood, and she was still nervous when she had to perform a surgery, but she would just do her best and trust in the Lord to do everything she could to help, right? Because she knew that she had to love everybody, even if they had bad intentions and were trying to hurt them. She knew that she wanted to try to help them. But she was afraid. She began to realize, though, that the fear that she felt pushed her to be minute by minute in touch with God. And God gave her amazing peace. She described it like this. She said, when the fear gripped me, but then when the moment came for action, God gave me a quiet, cool exterior that he used to give others courage too. He filled me with peace. He was so kind to Helen. Now, there were other scary situations that happened to Helen there, right? Sometimes the rebel soldiers would come in and tell her to give them their car keys. We need your car. We want it now, so you better give it to us. But they were young. They were kiddos. They didn't even know how to drive, but they said they wanted her car. So she had to help them back it up and take it to the mechanic to get it fixed. And they realized, because she knew she didn't want the vehicle to be stolen in the middle of the night, she had tampered with the lights to try to, make them not work so it would be harder for the rebels to see. And she, messed with the windshield wipers and was making sure that, nothing would really work right. But when they took it to the mechanic, the rebel soldiers realized, you've been messing with this car. And they weren't happy about that, right? And they were so mad at Helen and there were 17 of them at this one point that they had taken. And these 17 soldiers came and they were ready to charge and get them and beat them up. And then all of a sudden, do you guys know what happened? Helen was standing there praying, oh, Lord, please protect us. And those kids were coming at them. And then it was almost as if they were playing a game of red light, green light. Somehow God stopped them. Those children froze. And then it's almost like they forgot all about Helen. And they turned around and were laughing with each other. And they got in the van and they drove away. And they left Helen and her friends. And they didn't hurt them. God is amazing, right? He saved their lives from harm. There's another situation that was even a little bit more scary. In the middle of the night, Helen and her friends were woken up by banging on their door. And this time, it wasn't kiddos. It was older soldiers. It was men who came, and they were banging on her door. And they said, give us your husband. Where's your husband? And she said, I'm sorry, I don't have a husband. They didn't believe her. They got so mad, and they went inside her house, and they wrecked it, right? They took anything that they wanted. They just took it for themselves. And Helen and her friends there, they said, you know what? It's all right. We can stay calm. We're used to this. We know that this happens. God is going to just take care of us, and they'll soon go away. They'll go away. But this time, they were so mad, and they were so mean that they didn't go away. And they ended up beating up the student nurses, and they even beat up Helen. And they took her in the house, and even though she tried to run away, they found her and brought her back, and they hurt her very badly. And the whole time, she was just praying to the Lord and pouring out her heart to him. God, You're real. I love you. You've got me. I trust you. Give me your strength. Give me your peace. Give me faith, right? And she was able, even though she was being hurt and she was in a super scary situation, she was able to trust in the Lord. And she was saved from that. They took her and eventually let her go home. And when she was at home and she was getting good food and with other missionaries who were tending to her wounds and helping her feel better, they were praying and they were reading the Bible together. And they knew that it wasn't over yet. There were still rebels around that were ready to hurt them some more. But in the meantime, they could trust in the Lord and his plan for them. And instead of asking, right? Because when something scary is happening, we want to say, why? Why, God? Why is this happening to me? Is all of this really worth it? Is it worth it to follow you? Helen remembered that the better question was, it wasn't, is it worth it, but is he worthy? Is God worthy? Is he really my perfect king? He is worthy of anything that I go through, and he will give me the strength to endure and to get out of it. So instead of looking at the price that she had to pay, Dr. Helen saw Jesus as the holy and perfect God that he is. And she understood that he is absolutely worthy of our trust for every bit of our lives. So you guys, tomorrow when you get to come back and hear the next part of Helen's story, you will get to see how she relied on God to help her to thank him in everything. All right, guys, thank you for being here today. We'll see you later.